Welcome, Galactic Goonies, one and all. This is the Resistance broadcast, the final episode of Galactic Goonies. For now, maybe forever, we don't know, but we're glad you're here with us. I'm John. Thank you for joining us. Lacey with me as always. And our guest is an author. If you haven't picked up Return of the Jedi Visual Archive yet, what's wrong with you? Also, Star Wars Timelines, double what's wrong with you. So pick up both those books. He's a TV storyteller and has once again broken his own record with the most guest appearances on TRB. And he's now officially a Galactic Goonie. Look at this guy. Clayton Sandell, welcome back. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, guys. Very well. How you doing? What are we up to? This has got to be...
I think five or six, right?
Yeah, we're getting up there.
I think he's passed all those SNL guys by now.
Yeah. How are you guys doing?
Good. We're gonna see you in Japan in a few months, huh?
Yes, that is the plan. I plan to be there, and it's coming out. It's fast. It's coming out fast. We're like,
I know.
Yeah.
It hasn't really hit me until recently with, just focusing on Skeleton Crew and everything, and then thinking like, oh, what's after this? And it's like Andor. It's like, wait, Andor comes out when Celebration's here.
Yeah.
When the holidays hit, like everything slows for a little bit, and then it's just like speed run to the next thing.
Yeah. I've been remiss in doing some planning for Japan, but I hope to get on that here in the next week or so.
Now, Clayton, obviously, I did the big fat plugs for the books. We got that out of the way. Is there anything that you got going on that you could talk about that you'd like our audience to know about? If you have any plugs, fire away, pal.
Cool. Yeah, no, I've been doing some writing recently for ILM.com and SkySound.com, and lately I've been jumping in on doing a big piece that is in the works on a lot of the visual effects on the show, which has been super fun to dive into with guys like John Knoll and Eddie Pasquarello, the supervisors, and Sean Kelly, who was the animation supervisor, and all the way just tons of really interesting people that have been contributing to that show, which is fun. So it's cool because I get to talk about new stuff like Skeleton Crew, but also diving into like films that are celebrating big anniversaries. So I just started down the road to work on a Goonies 40th anniversary, kind of look back at the work ILM did on that movie, which wasn't a lot. It was only like 18 shots in the end. But what's really fun about that is the Goonies, the Goonies keeps getting mentioned in relation to Skeleton Crew, but there are some really cool behind the scenes connections, like Bill George, who built his team built the pirate ship, the Inferno for the Goonies, built the model, is credited as a model maker on Skeleton Crew.
Wow.
So there's stuff like that. Jet Green, a matte painter who worked on things like Indiana Jones and had a couple of matte paintings in the Goonies, did a matte painting for Skeleton Crew, which now hangs in John Knoll's office. So
you did the vault, right?
What's that?
Was the vault the matte painting, or wasn't the barrier a matte
She did her painting was a painting of At-Aten from out like a planet view.
So awesome. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
I did it on oil painting, and it's a funny story because they had done all of these different techniques in Skeleton Crew. They had done stop motion, they had done puppetry, animatronics, and all that stuff. And John Knoll said that it was only about 2 months before ILM was having to deliver their final shots, which is getting close to the deadline, when he got an email from John Watts saying, "Hey, we've done all these other things. Can we do a matte painting?" And so he was like, so
my gosh.
Yeah, he had 2 months to make it happen. So John Knoll starts reaching out to all of these retired ILMers who to see if anybody might be willing to come back to do a matte painting. So John
Knoll never says no, by the way. Every interview I hear of him, he's like, they wanted to do this. I had 3 days. I was like, let me build this real quick. Like, he never says
let me
no.
solder it together in my Yeah, so he pulled it off. He got Caroline Caroline Jet Green came back to do that painting, and once
I
it was
love
done,
that.
he's now got it hanging in his office, which is kind of cool.
Man, that is amazing.
He did the move that Jon Favreau said, that if you get them to do models and paintings and stuff, you get to keep it. John Knoll learned that real quick. Real quick.
Right. Yeah. Maybe that's what he was up to. But yeah, it's pretty great. Pretty good.
Clayton, have to mention, it doesn't have anything to do with Skeleton Crew, but amazing work and job giving the fans access to Jake Lloyd through your interview.
Oh, yes.
Can you just touch on that? Give a summary to maybe our audience and where they could find it and stuff, because I think a lot of people are really happy to see that, and we would love to maybe see him one day in the future. But just let us know how that was.
Yeah, totally. So that was a story. Just to back up, I had going back to Celebration, it was Celebration Anaheim, right? When Hayden and Ewan came out to promote Obi-Wan. And that tremendous amount of love that came from the audience. Like people cheered, people cried. It was exciting to see them together, right? And so it was about then that I started kind of really thinking about Jake Lloyd and how nobody'd heard from him in forever. And so from about that point on until March of last year, I kind of worked to build a relationship with his mom, Lisa, and we would sort of talk every couple months. And the result of that was I put out the first article when I was at Scripps last March. And so that was sort of the first real update on what he and she and the whole family had been going through. And then I'd always kind of planned on following up, and I knew that the facility he was getting treatment for his schizophrenia diagnosis, I knew he was going to be leaving that place sometime in November, December. So I had just reached out at the beginning of December and just said, hey, if you just checking in, if you want to kind of do a follow-up and let me know how things are going. And sent that off. And then about a week later, she called me and said, yeah, we'd like to do that, but Jake would like to talk to you. So I was like, okay, no problem. So it's probably a couple days before Christmas. I think it was actually on the Monday before Christmas. They called me and we chatted for 15, 20 minutes or so. And it was good to hear from him. He sounds good. And
that's
which
good.
is a huge improvement, because if you read the first article that I wrote, and his mom had told me a couple of times that there were times where his illness, when he was off his medications, that he when he tried to speak, it was like a word salad, like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now what he is, this 18 months that he was in this program, and he really has gotten to the point where he understands the importance of taking his medication. And also they've kind of gotten over this hurdle of this sort of secondary condition he had, which was anosognosia, which is kind of a thing where you don't really realize that you are ill. And so you don't think you have a problem, so you don't take your medication, right?
Oh, yeah.
That led to a lot of issues. And so now he's kind of over that hump, which is great. But he sounded great, and it was cool talking to him, and he was really appreciative of the attention and the concern among fans that were worried about him, wanted to know how he was doing, and so he wanted them to know that they felt that, and from the response they got from the first article, and just in general, just hearing from people. So that was cool. So it was fun to kind of follow up, and it was nice to hear that he's still making progress, and we'll see where it goes from there. He's in a new facility now where he has a little more freedom to come and go.
Nice.
And his mom says that he's doing better than he has in years. They go to the movies a lot now. And she said, we weren't able to do that before because his attention span was so short, but now that he's been in this treatment, she says he can sit through a movie now. And so they enjoy going to the movies a ton. So I think it's as good news as possible. And Yeah, who knows? Who knows? I didn't bring it up this time around, but his mom's always said that if the time was right and he was doing really great and she thought he could handle it and he thought he could handle it, then maybe one day he'll come back to some type of role or some type of something.
Yeah.
Star Wars, but I think it's still a little early for that.
Me and my kids love this Christmas season. They fell in love with Jingle All the Way, and we watched that like 5 times over the holiday season. And I think some people forget he plays
Doesn't your
Arnold's
daughter
son.
love Home Alone?
Yeah,
she loves Home Alone. But now they're doing their Arnold accents, so it's a big mess in the Hoey household. But no, Clayton, great to have you. We're going to dive into the finale of Skeleton Crew in just a minute. I do want to thank everybody who's in the live chat. This is the last episode of Galactic Goonies, so we appreciate that. Just so everybody knows, we are switching TRB back to recorded episodes starting next week. Not forever. We are going to do a live run for Andor Season 2, and there's going to be more TRB live going forward. But we have an interview, our first interview for 2025 next week that may or may not be connected to Skeleton Crew. Who knows?
Followed by another interview.
Followed by another one. And then who knows after that. But we're going to recording next week. That'll start Thursday. So thank you to everybody joining us live for this temporary last TRB live in Galactic Goonies. Have fun. Enjoy the show. But we're here to talk about the real good guys. John Watts and Christopher Ford wrote the finale, directed by John Watts. And that puts a bow on Skeleton Crew for now. We're going to talk all about it. So make sure you are subscribed to TRB and all that good stuff. You know the deal. Spread the word. Tell your friends. And let's have some fun. So we're going to kick things off the way we typically do. I know we do have some super chats, though, first, Lacey. So let's get to those wonderful people. And then we'll get into the NEEL scale for the final time.
Yeah, so first up we have David Ford. Thank you so much for the super chat, David. He said the unexpected plot twists, exciting chases, and further character development helped to land the Corellian Corvette in spectacular fashion. Perfect 10. So I think he liked it. Thank you, David. And then he follows it up with, were those particle cannons on the B-Wings? We'll get back to you on that, but thank you for the super chat. I'm going to hold on to this question. And then we have David Probus. Thank you so much, David, who said, I hoist the colors. Clayton, great job on the Jake Lloyd piece. That was really great to hear. He's doing better. Totally.
Thank you, David.
And last but not least for now is Darth Snips. What up, girl? She said, loved Skeleton Crew, and I'm seriously going to miss it. Also, happy B-Day to Mike Ramori. Mike,
yes,
happy birthday.
Yesterday. Happy birthday, Mike.
Yeah.
Happy birthday. Cool.
Today. That was yesterday. Yeah. All right.
It was yesterday, Darth Snips.
It's like that Larry David. It's the Larry David Happy New Year. Like, don't you be wishing me Happy New Year on January 4th. Like, it's over.
Yeah, 3 days. 3-day limit.
Yeah. No, but happy birthday, Mike. We had some fun chat in the TRV Discord. But let's get into rating this final episode of Skeleton Crew. We each rated it 0 to 10. NEEL faces, halves count, and we are going to start things off with Clayton. Clayton, episode 8. What'd you give it on the NEEL scale?
I gave it an 8.5 on the NEEL scale. I liked it a lot. I enjoyed the whole series, and I think they wrapped it up nicely. It felt like a nice complete story that no big major like cliffhangers that were sort of out there to keep us guessing. I think I would have gone a 10. I think the biggest thing for me was just the I wanted a little bit more, and I know people have said that it's sort of self-contained and perfect by itself. I think I personally wanted a little more connection to the bigger Star Wars galaxy and of stories, but so I think that's the only reason why I didn't rate it as high, but I loved it. The whole show I liked, and thought they knocked it out of the park. So
Yeah, I can't wait to hear more of your thoughts on just the overall season as we discuss it
Yeah.
here, because it is a bit of a look back, and it's actually a show I'm really excited to rewatch.
Yeah.
But 8.5 is a B score, and I'm gonna follow that up with a tick higher. I went 9.5.
Mhm.
Not, it's hard for me to give tens. I don't know if I've given a 10 yet to the shows, because Empire Strikes Back is 10. So. But 9.5, I've loved this show from start to finish. I think they did the perfect job of balancing the fun with the high stakes, and still having some drama in there. But this episode, I could have used maybe 10 more minutes. I feel like there were a lot of things that were like, all right, we finished that, let's move on to this part, and do that, move on to this part. But I do feel like they landed the plane pretty well in a day and age where people are just constantly disappointed and upset by finales. I think overall they did a really good job of ending this, because there were a lot of characters that they had to put some closure on. And did they leave things open for some things? Sure, but maybe we see these people again, whether it's Skeleton Crew or something else. So 9.5 for me. Lacey, beat that.
I will beat that, because I gave this episode a 10. A 10 out of 10. The only other 10. The only other episode I believe that I gave a 10 was Luke Skywalker and Mando showing up. That was my other 10, and I believe I gave the first episode of Mando a 10.
Wow, that's high.
I think you did.
High
the
parade.
very first episode, you went
So
right out of the
this is
gate.
the third, because I couldn't believe that they did what they did, and it was just so perfect. I loved this episode. I thought it was perfect. It was so enjoyable, and if I was going to critique it at all, I wish that this whole series was a movie instead. I think it suffered by being turned into a series. I know that they had mentioned in an interview that originally it was a movie that then got turned into a series. I think this series suffered from the Disney, let's put it on Disney Plus stuff. Because if you look at the movie theater schedules in general, there's not a lot of family-friendly movies that aren't animated. This movie would have done so well in the box office, and I think that it suffered audience-wise from what people are saying online, because they didn't have the confidence to put it on the big screen.
I completely agree. I think that if this film had been, or if the series had been announced, or the project had come up even a year later, I think they would have done the Moana 2 route and gone.
Yes.
I think, if you listen to what like Alan Bergman at Disney has said, is that they did that with Moana, and they are doing that with The Mandalorian and Grogu, because they get so much more sort of exposure and bang for the buck in the cinema around the world. And then they put it on streaming, and it does well there too. So they get sort of a double bounce out of it. And I think that if Skeleton Crew had come just a little bit later, it was still in that first wave of all the shows that they had announced from from Mandalorian and Obi-Wan and Book of Boba Fett and all of that. It was still sort of in that class. But if it had come a little bit later, I think they would have done I totally agree with you. I think it would have worked better as a movie. I think it was just timing. I think it just got in on the tail end of when Disney was still focused on just sort of throwing everything at the wall in terms of before they kind of refined their strategy that they're at now. And
and trying to convert people to subscribe.
It was all about just getting mass numbers of subscribers in the beginning, and now it's changed to now making the most money off of the subscribers that they have. They want more subscribers.
You got to follow the scent. You got
to follow the scent. Wall Street sort of made its intentions known, and Disney had to follow along, and so the rest is history.
It just drives me wild, because it's like I look at it and I'm like, this would have been the perfect, like, that was an awesome movie. I got to see it again. Like popcorn, having a good time. Like, I'll say this, like a Solo, Pirates of the Caribbean, like a fun movie that families can go to, because look at the schedule for movies. There are not many live action movies, and the only live action ones are the ones Disney saying, hey, this was a cartoon, it did really well, we're now going to make it live action. Like there's no original live action movies anymore. I turned on my TV today and it has this stupid movie channel that comes on because it's a smart TV, but it was Movie Hub and it was Hook with Robin Williams, and it was the ending, and it was such like a wholesome yay ending with the music and everyone's hugging, and it's such a, and I'm like, that's how I felt last night watching Skeleton Crew. I just had such a joyful, like, nice. I left this not confused, pissed off, or sad. I left this like, okay, that was fun. I'd watch that again. And then, like, I haven't gotten that from Star Wars lately. I'm going to be honest. It's been a lot of like sadness, or like, what does this mean? You know?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Well, with that 10, pre-rant 10, that gives us a 9.3 from the three of us. So an absolutely dynamite score for the finale of Skeleton Crew. And then the TRB community was like, a little more. And they came in with a 9.4.
Oh,
so little more Neil. Just a little more Neil from the TRB community. They had to one up. It was like the reverse Price is Right. You know, they had to just go one tick above us. But so great score from them, and now a few comments from them. Brian Smith said 10 Neils for the spectacular end to the show was worth waiting for. The complexity of Jod was fully revealed with a sad story about his loss of innocence, followed with his corruption at the hands of criminals. In the end, he realized he didn't want to do to the children what was done to him by the Empire. Thank you, Brian. Kyle Beckworth with 9.5. Neil said, I really love the show, and I feel like they stuck the landing, and Jod is not dead. He needs to be Filoni's movie or season 2. And then Joey, I said this in the TRB Discord, in the spoiler chat for Skeleton Crew, I said, throw your final predictions in. If anyone gets anything right, I will shout it out in the show. And I remembered, thankfully, with this the SM33 brain I have kicking around up here. And Joey said his prediction was, the series will end with the barrier coming down and the people of At-Atten seeing the stars for the first time. Ever since the kids saw the stars in the first episode, that called out to me is something the whole planet will need to experience. Nailed it, Joey. Nailed it. Good job. Yeah. All right. Before we get into the discussion of this episode, we do have to get into the treasure hunt. It is the Galactic Goonies treasure hunt. It's been our season-long giveaway contest, and what I've been doing every week is asking a trivia question. What you need to have been doing is collecting all of the answers to these not very hard questions, but ye be warned. Don't share your answers with any other pirates, or they'll snipe you at the first chance they get. All right, Lacey, is that all right to close it out?
I love how hard you went there. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So I hope everyone has been keeping track of the answers each week, because after I give this final question, I'm going to reveal how to submit for a shot to win the Galactic Goonies treasure, which includes the Lego Star Wars Skeleton Crew Onyx Cinder spaceship, TRB merch, Galactic Goonies merch, and it's all going to one person. Now,
and a Skeleton Crew flag, courtesy
and the Skeleton Crew flag. Yes. The final question is, what is the name of the rat who spent most of his time literally inside SM33's head? And now that you've had all the questions and hopefully all the answers, this is how you can enter to win. You're going to take the first letter from each answer in the order it was received and email us tomorrow at resistancebroadcast@gmail.com starting at 11:38 a.m. Eastern Time, and you could submit it up until 5 p.m. East. We want to give everybody a chance to enter, and then we're going to take all of the correct answers. We're going to do a random draw and find out who the luckiest pirate in Star Wars fandom is. So good luck to everybody. And a bonus too, if you give the answer and you also give what it is referencing, you just get a nice little like one of those. Well, like, good job from me. All right. All right. Let's get into this episode. Clayton, you're going to kick things off. We like to warm up the tires by talking about maybe what was the standout moment for us, or the moment that, like, you know, hit us in the chest or made us laugh, whatever your big one takeaway from the finale of Skeleton Crew. Did you have anything like that for you, Clayton?
It had to be that post-credit scene with Darth Plagueis, right? Like when they wrapped up that whole thing. That to me was like the best. I was so happy to see that, and answered so many questions. Yeah, that was my favorite.
Excellent.
I had a couple of favorite moments. But I think my favorite of the two was what I'm calling Wim's broom boy moment, where he standing there, looks up, sees the ship arrive, and it just had this very hopeful. He had completed this adventure, had sort of had his eyes open to the broader galaxy, and he's looking up at that ship, and it just, that particular shot, the look on his face, the feeling, the music, everything about it just sort of carried this feeling of hope and future adventures with this character, whether it's a season 2 or a film or whatever it is. And that just stuck out to me just because it was a nice feel good way to kind of wrap up that episode.
That is a great pick and great comparison too. I didn't even think about that, the broom boy thing. Nice.
Yeah, just that looking up at the stars kind of.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, just kind of echoed that for me a little bit.
That is awesome. Lacey, how about you? Favorite shot, moment, line?
I have a couple. I'm going to give one just in case you give the next one. And if you don't, I'll just circle back. Even though that's not how this works, but whatever. It's the last show, so winging it.
It's the finale. Who cares? We do whatever we want. Clayton's here. We're hanging out. Let's go.
I'm going to have to go with the obvious favorite shot of everybody because it was just so beautifully done, which was Jude Law walking up to the window with the pirate ship crashing in front of him. And then when he turned around and it was behind him in flames, and it's just like the silhouette of him with the windows, and it's a very low angle shot. It's just absolutely stunning cinematography. It meant so much in that moment. Jude Law was perfect with his blocking. It was just, oh my God. I was like, this is a top 10 shot in Star Wars right here.
What's blocking?
Like where he goes to stop.
Oh, okay.
And that little smile. That he had a bit of a smirky.
I think he's like, I'm free. The ship crashing was, I'm free. And I think he got away. I think that's what they're saying.
I took it as like he's already thinking of his next move because it was like this little like conniving look to me. But
I felt like we would be hearing like dun, 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 like some type of like, like Pirates of the Caribbean where at the end he's like singing and then he shuts the compass and it goes to the next adventure. Like it's the same thing. That's one
of my favorite endings to a movie.
I took it as a slightly different interpretation, which is that he almost, as much as he felt like he had been, like these kids got the better of him in the end, these kids that he thought he was, there was a little bit of they got the upper hand on him, and
Scooby-Doo, those meddling kids.
I
would have gotten away with it.
Yeah, a little bit of that,
and also maybe a little like realizing like maybe I miss those little rascals a little bit now that they're gone.
Right.
I don't think so. I think he's
that's probably just me speaking.
He's good.
Lacey, that shot reminded me of the end of Fight Club too, when they're standing there holding hands and the whole city's exploding and the Pixies is playing. It's their shadows and you see all the buildings coming down. Made me think of that. So great pick. Mine is, I'm a sucker for music swells and stuff like that. And Mick Giacchino did some big time Giacchinoing.
Yes, he did.
When
he Giacchino'd hard this episode.
Big time Giacchinoing. Yes.
Lots of Giacchinos all over the place.
Yes. When they were slow-mo running into the elevator and the music really swelling, like almost like out of the finale of Lost. So they're just like so powerful. And I'm like, I can't
the bikes.
Help the bikes, yeah. But on the top of the tower when they were leaving and Jod was still there, and I almost said Ravi. Fantastic, by the way, performance. Wim turns around, and even after everything, he's still like concerned about Jod. He goes, Jod, like, come with us in a way. And that just shows like the little Luke Skywalker in him, like the goodness in him, and like seeing the way Luke saw the goodness in Vader and saying like, "You come with me," and he's like, that's him sort of saying that to this sort of replacement father figure while Wendell was figuring stuff out, and he just yelling to Jod like hit me right in the chest. I was like, oh my god, this kid is just so pure and believes that there is good in people, and it made me think of Luke in Return of the Jedi, and the way the music was hitting too. I was like, oh man. Like that moment, and then the group hug at the end, like got me like close. I didn't like tear or anything like that, but
going off the goodness of people piece of this, which was in a lot of this episode, I feel. The moment between Fern and Farah, where Fern explains to her mother, like, there's danger everywhere, but there's good people too. And I feel like that is obviously very important to the story, but I can't help but also think that that's a little bit of the writer speaking to the current world we're living in. Is like, it's easy to see all the danger and all the bad and all the terrible things that are going on, but remember, and it reminds me of the Mr. Rogers quote of like, always look for the people that help,
the helpers,
always look for the good people. And that moment with Fern kind of switched her whole mentality from the beginning of the series, where she didn't care about anybody. She's racing, who cares, this is so stupid. And then, you know, she's bossy the whole series. And then at the end, it's all about, how can I help everybody else? It's, you know, we're in this together, community. Like, Atten is great, but other people deserve to have this situation too, because they saw so many terrible situations with other characters and creatures and the whole other Akron planet of like how they're living. I think she realized that she was taking a lot for granted, but also like her life shouldn't be better than anybody else's. Like, her life should be to help others when she can. And that one definitely, like, I teared up with that moment, and I really enjoyed the moment. And this was like great musically as well. Keynote everywhere was the bike jump part with the father with Wendell. Oh my god,
that was
Wendell
really cool.
Shined in this episode. He finally got his moment in this episode.
He finally figured it out, because you know, you bringing up about how great Atten is, like the beginning of the episode on my rewatch, because I was so pumped to watch the finale that it took me a minute to really just like start listening. But in my rewatch, like, I'm realizing he's nuking a TV dinner, and then he puts it on the table in front of women. He's like, nothing like a home cooked meal, huh, son? And it's like, that dude needs to get out there to the galaxy, because even that slimy mud hole pirate port they were at looked like it had better food than what they were eating on Atten. So like it's that element of it too, sort of like they were so conditioned that where they were complacent, they were safe, and as long as that was the case, that was the best life needed to be. And it's like, now that it's literally opened up, they can actually go experience life for the first time the way their kids did. So that hit me pretty hard. But anyway,
I think that your point, Lacey, about Fern sort of being this bossy, got to be in charge personality in the beginning, to then working with her mom and Wim to sort of figure out how they were going to get out of this situation for and save the planet, essentially, speaks to just how well every single character over these 8 episodes had such a great arc.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, that scene where they all jump and Wendell, you know, he has his moment, like that was another great example of, and we could talk about every single character, I think. But that was a great example of somebody who just has a complete turnaround by the end of the series. And that's what you want to see. You want to see characters. And I think this show did it better than some other recent Star Wars projects, where the characters were just kind of flat and didn't really do much. But this,
I cared about every single one of these characters.
Cared about every single one of them.
Happened
and watch them
series.
grow. Yeah, you watch them grow. You watch them change. And they set each and every one of them up in such a great fashion.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of the supervisor?
Oh, HAL 9000.
Yeah. I wanted it to be someone, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I had like all these like questions in my head of who it was gonna be, But I was also not surprised that it was no one.
Yeah. The second I saw the dust, I thought, okay, it's definitely
Yeah.
a droid,
Yeah.
something or other.
Well, that was the most like thought-provoking part of the episode for me is I loved the sarcasm of the supervisor when he's like, just please confirm this one tiny thing for me first. But when he said the Jedi are traitors, so I'm like, all right, so did the Empire install all this? Like,
Yeah.
is this another Sheevy Babes Palpatine plan? A little Operation Cinder, little Ad-Atten Mint. So that made me think like, yeah, we do have a lot of questions that haven't been answered, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Even if Skeleton Crew's over, like they can explore these in the future. But did that trigger anything with you guys? Like hearing that, because I actually did not expect that the Jedi are traitors to the galaxy, the Republic.
I thought it. I think that, and this is kind of what I was saying earlier about my 8.5. That I kind of wanted a lot more of this kind of background. It's okay, I guess, that it's a mystery, but it did bring up a lot of questions for me about, why this place is, reminding me, and maybe it's been brought up before, but like it's almost like Camino, right? In Attack of the Clones, like it's this place that doesn't appear anywhere, nobody knows about it.
Yep.
And why is that? What would be the motivation of that? I was trying to think of like a real world parallel. Like we don't hide where our mints are in the United States. Like I'm sure, what's the meaning behind that? Was that the last message they ever received? Order 66. There's just tons of questions about it. And so, how did it become this sort of droid-run authoritarian society where everybody just kind of plays along and has played along and seems to ask no questions about it over decades and decades and decades, which I also thought was weird.
At least since their parents were kids, because he
said generations, I think.
Yeah, generations of exactly. So yeah, lots of questions for me. Why it's sort of this walled off. I saw somebody make a reference to it. So it's almost like the barrier was almost like the Berlin Wall. Like for years, just hiding this society that was sort of this authoritarian communist kind of utopia.
They all do dress like Imperials. Like when you're looking at Andor compared to this series, like the people on Ad-Atten do dress very kind of Empire.
It's bland.
Especially Farah. No, the white, the like creamish white with the certain buttons and the tailoring is very Empire. Even though they're different colored, I would say. Like Wendell wears like a brown, which usually you would see on Resistance, rebellion type characters. They're like, oh, browns are usually for the good guys. But like in this instance, it seemed like he was wearing brown because of the level he was, because not everybody was wearing brown, which someone said in the chat that they loved his line being like 7th level systems analyst. Like I am a 7th system level analyst.
Yeah.
But yeah, another good point is Frank Grande in the chat. I'm trying to look for here it is right here. He says the supervisor did look like a giant probe droid. It did. It had that shape. And I know everyone's talking about HAL as the obvious reference there, but I can't help but think of Wally with the cruise director, which is obviously the same call out, but like that's what I think of is like this kind of like quirky, jokey type thing. But yeah, it was very weird. And I agree with both of you. There's a lot of questions that remain unanswered. And I think that's due to John Watts and Christopher Ford wanting to leave it open. Like they've said that they want to do a season 2. They want more. I would love more. And they said, didn't they say, John, that they were going to do it a couple years later so that the kids are a little older?
Yeah, you got to do that. Yep.
Yeah.
Similar to Stranger Things. Yeah.
Then you could see the kids with, fluorescent hypercolor t-shirts now, really being able to express themselves in that 80s wonderful style. But so Clayton, earlier in the season, I compared Ad-Atten to the Truman Show and how, they are with this sort of false sunlight in a sense, and they aren't seeing what's really out there, and they're sort of contained in this society, and they're everything about their life is conditioned to get them to not want to leave. The way Truman
It
was
felt like
conditioned
Fallout.
not to,
Yeah, same thing.
not to go to,
No,
go, in water or go to Fiji or whatever, and then I was thinking of Tarkin's line in A New Hope, which is fear will keep the local systems in line, and in that one it was fear of this battle station, but I compared that to hearing the parents just talk about everyday life stuff, and I know parents are always worried, but they were worried about everything in their life in a very neurotic way for living in such a peaceful, communal, no crime planet. Like Wendell's always just they're conditioned to protect themselves as much as possible, and like don't skin your knees and don't do that, and it's like that's that fear too. And as long as they were satisfied, well fed, and happy, they're not going to question anything. And it's like they were in their own prison, even though it was this nice prison.
Yeah, and you always got the sense that there was a lot at stake by by revealing yourself to the outside galaxy. The episode where they were talking about getting the message out and not alerting anyone to their position and all of that. But yeah, it's again brings up 10 more questions about why they were there and what they were doing and what they thought they were doing, and the great work is what they called it, right? The great work.
Yeah, the great work. Yeah.
Which I thought originally was going to be some sort of High Republic reference, but I guess it turned out to be just making money.
Cold hard credits.
Well, when you phrase anything as something with a higher purpose, then people usually fall in line easier than saying, "Hey, you're just making money."
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Lacey, I know we have a super chat, so I'd love to get that on.
We have a couple, so I'm going to bring back up David Ford. Thank you so much. Who said, "Were those particle cannons on the B-wings?"
Maybe my favorite.
Hey,
nah, there it is.
Clayton's got an actual B-wing in his hand right now.
I'm a big fan of the B-wing.
So do you know, Clayton? Like,
I don't know. No.
Oh, okay.
No.
You're like, I just play with this thing, all right? Just leave me alone.
Yeah, no, I honestly don't know.
I don't know.
I don't
either.
remember ever seeing a B-wing shoot like that before, though.
In animation.
Oh, Rebels, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah,
they've done it in Rebels, I think.
Yeah.
But not in live action.
I don't know. Particle. Maybe someone in the chat knows particle cannons.
Maybe.
But it was
I've
cool
only been
seeing
able to
the
watch
B-wings.
this once so far, so I haven't been able to go back and like really look into stuff like that. But thank you for the super chat. Thanks, Amanda, who's up next. Said Neil's had so many greatest moments in this episode. The art of the shots blew me away. Yeah, I laughed pretty hard with the flying shot where he's like, wow, and he gets blasted off the bike. As long as he was okay. That's obviously most important.
Yeah.
But it was just very funny. This poor kid was like, wow. It probably wasn't the kid. They probably put a stunt person in it, but
Neil had a rough ride in the finale.
The gun
I'm not gonna lie.
I know. I knew I was gonna get the gun thing though. We've been saying that since that episode happened. Like the gun's coming back. He's gonna bring up that big gun.
Right.
And when they were like, we need someone to blast off the ships, I was like, here comes the gun. He's like, I know what to do. And I was like, yes. Like the payoff was there that I haven't gotten in other series of, oh, I've been paying attention the whole time. And now these things are full circle coming back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which was nice.
And it wasn't Carson Teva, which was good.
I wish it was. I thought at the end.
You wish he blew Carson Teva out of the sky?
No.
How dare you say something
Sorry,
like that?
I misunderstood
We're
what you
live.
were saying. Okay, stop. I thought you were saying at the end when all those X-Wings came, he would show up there. I thought he was, and honestly, I thought Mando was about to show up. I was like, is this a moment that it's going to happen where he flies in with them? Because he's working with them now.
Yeah.
I thought that
feel
was
like
going to be the final tie-in. Like, there's the ship. Not even say anything. Just maybe a couple notes from the Jaquinos. Coming in. A couple notes. But it didn't happen. And I was very disappointed. But I get why. I think there is a piece here that we have to acknowledge that maybe some of these series haven't landed the way that they wanted them to land. And so they don't want to invest too much into the story of Mando, which is like their baby. their little baby Yoda baby. And they don't want to tie that into too many other things, because then if this does very bad, then they're stuck kind of explaining how this is connected to that. Whereas going back to what you were saying earlier, Clayton, if it's its own thing, if it does well, great, then we can tie it in. If it doesn't do great, then they're like, oh, well, that was just kind of a thing we did. Like it's like a safety kind of.
Yeah. I think they, also it goes to, and this kind of reminded me of a conversation from like 2017 when.
Oh my gosh, that feels like forever ago. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, it was. But talking to Dave Filoni about the Rebels finale, because there was talk, that the ghost pops up in Rogue One, and whether the finale of Rebels was going to somehow overlap with the Battle of Scarif. And it was funny when the question came up and he kind of thought about it and he was like, I never even considered that, because we kind of want it as creators to be its own separate standalone thing. And I kind of wonder the lack of cameos in that show, whether Watts and Ford were sort of that mind, that they kind of wanted it to be, have its own space, have its own thing. We're not going to have Mando show up. We're not going to have these other sort of random cameos pop up here and there. I'm
interested to see if it was their doing, or they asked and Disney was like, no, do your own thing. You know what I mean? Because like, oh, we have this character doing this right now. You can't. Like, imagine they go into a meeting with Filoni and they're like, what about this person? He's like, no, busy, over here. What about this person? Can't, over here.
The funniest thing about like when Watson, because we like to analyze and talk about the themes and all that stuff, and they're there, and because they're good writers, but I just loved how they put it so simply. Anytime they would talk about the premise of the show, and they would always start off by saying it's kids lost in space. And I think the cameos and stuff, I agree with you guys. Like, I think the cameos maybe would be awesome right now. But in 10 years, it would probably look a little strange. Because if you go to rewatch the show or watch it for the first time, you're not watching it because, and then this is next, so that's why he's here. And I haven't gone back to like rewatch, Book of Boba Fett just yet. I think I rewatched the finale because that was bananas and awesome. But like just that Mando episode in the middle, and the Grogu being away from him for like 15 minutes after we all sobbed, the year prior. But so I do like that it is, in the Favreau Filoni verse, but sort of standing on its own thing. You got the pirates in there who we saw in Mando, so that's your sort of crossover.
Yeah, a little bit of
there.
crossover. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he survived, right? That main pirate from The Mandalorian. I think he got out of there on one of those last ships.
He might have, but I
don't remember hearing his voice. Yeah, like escape or yeah, like get out of here or something like that.
I don't know. He was on one of the smaller ships that was trying to get away.
Lacey, that quote you brought up though that someone had in the chat from Wendell made me laugh so hard because
oh my god, yes, it was such a good delivery.
It's not you're talking to a Jedi, or you're talking to a great warrior, or you're talking to the fastest pilot in the galaxy. This dude, he just unloads his business card onto his son. Seventh level.
Great moment.
And the way he said it with such nerdy confidence, I was like, that is perfect. That was so good. I feel like every member of the cast just gave a great performance too. And I agree with you, Lacey. Like, I cared about all these characters in this show. And I don't know that I could say that about every show that's come out.
I couldn't.
But I never in my heart felt that the kids were going to get seriously hurt or killed or anything. Like the KB with her power down was the closest. Yeah. I knew there was going to be sort of a happy ending there.
Yep. We do have one more super chat from RMN Rojas. What up, man? He said, love the speeder bikes. And when Neil views the space from Atten, when the barrier goes down, 9.5 Neils for me.
Nice.
That is such a beautiful moment when they're all like, whoa. And the sound too. Barrier, and then there's like wind and crickets and like, it's nice.
That was really cool. We got to talk about Jod, of course. no one like that whole him, revealing his story. Was it enough for you, Clayton? I know you said like, you wanted more
Yeah,
answers. Did that one push your buttons?
yeah,
Or were you cool with his story? Or
that to me was perfect. Of course, we'd like to know more, and I suspect if they don't explore this in a season 2, which I actually don't think we're going to get, but if they don't explore it in a season 2, it's ripe for publishing and comics and all of that. I think we'll eventually get that backstory. But just as a performance, I thought Jude Law just killed it in this episode. My other favorite moment of this finale was his pinpricks of light speech. I mean, it was just so good. You get the backstory, you get all of it, but also the performance itself was the delivery of the lines, everything about that moment was just fantastic. And I also liked the sort of Emperor, the Palpatine callbacks or the echoes in some of his lines, which I thought was sort of an interesting choice, where he tells the pirates to begin the invasion, which was sort of similar.
yes.
And then there were just moments like that where it it's just like a weird echo of Palpatine.
Even the supervisor with that very Phantom Menace to Anakin line that
Oh,
will follow
yeah,
your future with great interest.
Right. There was right.
So
That's
who
right,
programmed the prompts for that?
With great
supervisor?
interest. Yeah.
That was, I immediately thought that when he said, I was like, oh no.
It's another Sheevy Palpatine plan. I'm telling you.
I was like, why are they just? Oh no!
Empire needs financing.
It does.
Yeah.
But the thing to remember is nobody had been there for a long time, because they said they were running through the process and the grass was like there for a while. There's dust everywhere in the supervised. Like there was no emissaries to come pick this stuff up. So again, that's something they could explore more in another series or a movie or whatever, of what does it mean? Like, who set this whole thing up? Who is the headless statue on the other planet? How many planets are there?
Yeah.
Why did they stop coming? Because it's one thing to see the Empire fall, but you'd think that they'd run and go get their money, if anything.
Yeah.
At least some of them. Right?
Yeah.
Clayton, I get your point about, they can continue Jod in books and comics and stuff, but it's Jude Law, man. Like and to your point, he was so good. So if we get Jod in like a comic book, I'm gonna be like, all right, but I want to see more of him as Jod, and it seemed like he really loved playing the role. Yeah. So and also I gotta say it, our audience knows I gotta say it. Thank you for not killing your villain. Oh my God!
Oh, thank you. Leaving it open for other things. Yeah.
Oh God, they always kill him, and it's just you just get to start to love him.
Full redemption.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know the moment. You know the moment that I thought that if they were going to kill him. The moment that I thought they were going to kill him. Do you have a guess?
I think I do.
Okay. Yeah, when they're struggling over the lightsaber and they're like coming closer, I thought they're going to get like really close, and Wim's going to turn it on, and it's going to impale him.
I thought the exact same thing. Yes.
I thought he was going down at that moment. And then thankfully they went another way. But yeah.
So John Watts was like, oh, we're going to like really hook him in with this one. Like, yeah. Pull the rug under us there. I thought he was great. And I liked the fact that he was essentially bluffing for the most part. And he didn't want to ultimately hurt these kids. He took it as far as he could. And they called his bluff, and he had a 3 and a 5. He didn't have the strong hand. Mm-hmm. So he is still the villain, but it's clear he's somebody who just maybe a little like Han Solo, but he came from nothing like Han, got jaded very young, and then it changed his whole trajectory. And the only difference is Han met these people who he absolutely fell in love with in Luke, Leia, and the rest of them. And he had Chewie, of course, which, helped keep him on the straight and narrow. But Jod didn't really have that, and he took to the really dark life of crime. So I do see similarities there, but I like that Jod is the 5 billionth Star Wars character ever created, and he's using a lightsaber, using the Force, and he's a kind of a rogue guy, but he felt like a unique, brand new entry into Star Wars. So I got to give them a round of applause for that. That's hard to do.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And there was I forget exactly what the line was, but there's a moment where he's describing being found by this ragged Jedi, or however he describes it, and how she found him and took an interest in him. And he starts a half line where he starts to, I think, describe what that meant to him. And he stops himself. And then he describes how she was murdered. But I would have loved to have known what the second half of that line was, because I think it would have been the absolute key to his personality and how that just completely changed his life. It was a great moment. It was just like, it was heartbreaking because you wanted, you almost got inside his psyche at that moment, and then he like sort of as a protection mechanism, I think, said, I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna go there, and then sort of described his bitterness. So.
Because he's had those boil over moments throughout the season, like when they're on the moon and he goes, I'm nobody. And it's like, that was his first truth revealed. And it's like, then he gets to that point in this episode and he almost does it again. But like you said, he stops himself. And I could be wrong, but I think I remember when I heard him saying that, it almost sounded like it was like going to be one of those, like, for the first time in my life, I felt purpose, or for the first time in my life, somebody believed in me, or, you know, one of those things. And he's like, that's weakness. That's not what men do. Like, you know, push that feeling down and get back to business.
Completely agree. Yeah, completely agree.
Great call. Absolutely great call.
But it just adds to it just completely adds to the character and color and depth of that performance. I thought it was great.
I'm trying to remember. This is just like a random moment that popped in my head just now talking about Jod, is that he basically said that someone came to kill the Jedi and he was spared. And I remember so vividly that horrific scene in Obi-Wan Kenobi where they go to that planet and they spare the one kid, and then they go inside and murder everybody, like in the cantina room hiding. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yes.
And I was like, is that the type of scenario we're talking about? Like, how does this all interconnect?
Yeah, he did say she was hunted down, so.
Yeah, but overall, and the only reason I say that planet is because that's where all the Jedi were coming through. Remember that path? That's where they were kind of coming through that secret pathway. But yeah, Jude Law was amazing. From the moment he stepped on screen, he was magnetic, charming, captured everything, played off everybody so well too. Like
the shanty.
He commanded such a presence on screen, but still let the kids shine. And I thought that was so important, because oftentimes you see adults playing with kids and you're like, okay, just let the kid give their line. Like, it's okay.
Right. Yeah.
But I think he knew the importance of letting them have their moments. And I think he brought their best work out of them because he was so giving. He was so good. And I really hope they bring him into something else. They continue this story some way, especially with him. The kids are great, but at the same time, I feel like the kids' story is kind of done, so to speak. Like, they've ended. You could carry them on, but if you don't, that's okay. Jod is such a character with so many questions around him, and the way they kind of have that smirk right when they go away from him, it just leaves me being like, okay, where is he going next? What trouble is he going to cause? Who is he about to run into? Type thing.
As long as they don't do a Goonies and wait 40 years.
Yeah.
But
we do have one more super chat from Michelle who said, and most importantly, Snowball survived. Oh, yes. We haven't talked about SM-33 yet. So hero moment right there.
Can I ask a quick question for you guys that confused me, and I want to see your take on it about Jod?
Sure.
And then we'll get to that.
Sure.
Did it seem to you like he sort of gave up a little too quickly? Like, Wim's got the lightsaber, and then he's pointing his blaster at him, and he just tosses it away. Like,
that did strike me as a lot. Yeah.
That felt a little. I didn't understand that, so I don't know if Lacey, any thoughts on that one? Because
I It didn't necessarily stick out to me that I think about it.
He was just he was pointing it at them, and Wim's pointing the lightsaber at him. He knows the kid doesn't really know how to use it, and he just takes his blaster and he tosses it to the side as though I give up.
I also think it was a challenge to Wim because he's like, he knows Wim's not going to do it. Wim's not the bad guy.
Small question, no big deal, but yeah, go ahead. SM33, amazing all season.
Yeah, so thanks Michelle for the super chat. She said, and most importantly, Snowball survived.
Thank you,
what
Michelle.
a great hero moment for KB to be flying the ship, and they'd be like, "How are you doing that?" I'm not doing it alone, and there he is. And someone had hinted about this in an interview with Christopher Ford and John Watts about the Monkey Island video game where the person's holding their skull or holding a skull. And they talked about this on an episode episode 2 or 3, I think. And here he was holding his skull like off to the side. It was such like a fist in the air, like happy moment
awesome.
that played into the overall feeling I left this episode with, which is like that was so fun. I really enjoyed that.
I did too. Yeah, it it wasn't a space battle, but the whole aerial combat stuff, it was like classic third act Star Wars stuff. And seeing the X-Wing swoop in, the classic, like that distinct X-Wing blaster sound, that tightness of it, just you fist pump to that stuff, and seeing the pirates just go down was awesome. So I agree. And then the last thing that I loved was before the group hug, when they were checking to see if KB was okay, they're literally running on the credits that they dedicate their whole lives to making, because they don't matter anymore. They're just spilled all over the ground, and the camera's focused on the ground, and you see their feet. And I think the subtitle said, credits clanging on the ground. And it's just like this metaphor that they realize they are running over that now to get to their people. And Wendell finally gets it. The parents finally get it. And it's almost like a lot of those 80s movies where I've been saying the past few weeks, the parents are mad at their kids and they're disappointing their kids, and you got to be this way. And then by the end, the kids are teaching their parents a lesson to be more like how they used to be, and not at this, jaded, tired, I got to get up and go to work for no reason whatsoever version of themselves that Jod sort of is in his own criminal way. So I love that they're running literally right on those credits because they didn't matter anymore.
I felt for Farrah when they were all hugging and stuff. I was like, don't hug under that ship, please. Please move. Please move. And she's like, how about we move? We move out from under. I was like, there it is. There's my girl.
And then Wendell's like,
there's my girl.
I gotta be funny too. You can't go on a big adventure and then get crushed by the ship, kids. So awesome.
Dad. Just a dad.
Which I saw somebody say that was maybe a reference to the poor guy that got crushed by the credits in Andor. Remember that?
Oh, yes.
Right.
Geez, yes. That was a brutal death, by the way.
That was awful.
Was that Skeen?
I forget the character's name, but
wasn't it? It was the guy with the whole manifesto.
Yeah, with the manifesto and
Nemec. Yes.
Nemec.
Snaps him.
Yes.
Nemec forever, Kyle.
Nemec forever.
Yeah. I do have another super chat from Semperfi Danny. What up, Danny? She said, I loved the end credit graphics. Seeing the last image of the kids becoming part of the hero story was so satisfying in every possible way. Yeah, I mean, what a perfect bow on the story that the stories that Wim was so stuck in, and like all he cared about and everything was around these stories. He's now part of the story, because the story's going to go all over the galaxy. Like, these kids took a ship and then they took over this planet, and there's a planet of gold. Ad Aten is real, and they're now part of the story.
Danny, that's a great catch, because I did not catch that the first time around. I saw it online somewhere today. I'm like, oh, that's really cool.
It did make me a little sad for Willow, though, because it ends in such a way that Willow did with the book back on the shelf that showed like Willow 1, Willow 2, Willow 3. And I was like, oh my God, we're getting more Willow. And then we didn't. And then they removed it. But then with Skeleton Crew, they have it on the little kind of graphic deck. And I felt like being like, are they about to reveal like a Skeleton Crew 2 or like coming soon? Or but it was a really nice way to end the series.
I think these characters are going to be used again. And I had a feeling, just based on their genuine sweetness in their appearance at Celebration in London, and then I had a chance to speak to them in that roundtable interview, and then them in other interviews, and how they just collectively seem to really like each other. Those kids,
Mm-hmm.
I knew that they were going to give good performances, but I was honestly pretty blown away by how good they were, for child actors, because sometimes you get as good as you can, but like they were bringing emotion, tears, and it
Fern
all
delivered.
felt.
Fern, oh my gosh.
I thought Wim did too. I thought Robbie,
Yeah.
like at the end, when he's like about to pull the lever, and he just like finally gives Jod, like he wanted Jod to be the Jedi, and he finally is like, "I'm so done with you, dude," and he's like, "You're a liar. You're not a Jedi." And then he finally just unloaded all of it onto him, and he had tears in his eyes. I'm like, "Yes, little dude, yes."
Yeah.
But then, even after that, he's like, "But still come with us. Like, I don't want you to die." It's just like
Yeah,
such a
yeah.
good kid. They did such a great job. So I think we'll hopefully, see them again. But we'll see.
It was good. I'm sure you've talked about it. Just the sort of mix of real, it was a fun, sort of joyful show, but just the mix of real terror and consequence that they mixed into the situations, that some of these scenes that these kids had to play against. And I think they handled it really well.
My last question for you guys was that, I don't think that was Leia's ship, but do you think it was, Clayton? The Corvette?
At the end? I don't think so. Only because, at least on my TV, it was blue. It had blue markings.
I thought
It did. Blue stripes. Yeah.
So I don't think it was.
I don't think it was either.
I'm sure somebody out there has probably identified it, and
Yeah.
there's a Wikipedia page already about it. But
yeah, I don't think it was Leia's either because of the blue. I feel really smart now that you said that, Clayton, because I thought the same thing. I was like, that couldn't be Leia's because it has blue stripes, and hers, I believe, has red stripes.
I think so. Yeah. So
I didn't think it was her either.
Yeah.
Because they did sort of like, with 3PO and Ahsoka, it's like, oh, we have a message from, General Organa. It's like, oh, Leia. It's like, but she's gonna be off screen now in all these shows. I don't know how I feel about that. So I don't think it was her either. But any final thoughts on the season overall, and so before we put out a bow on this thing and get out of here?
Go ahead, Clayton. No, go ahead. No.
No. I was just going to say, a couple of people have mentioned it in the chat, and I agree too that it the BMX hoverbike, the whole sequence reminded me of E.T. It was very E.T.-esque. I kind of, when they jumped the thing, I half expected them to go in front of the moon as they were going over. It might have been a little on the nose, but it gave me that feeling.
Yeah, no, that was definitely, I think everybody felt that way. They're like, oh, I see what you're doing here. Cute. Very cute.
Yeah, I love it.
I think my other big takeaway outside of the acting and the music is the creature work in this series was better than I think any other series we've had. I think we saw more aliens, more puppets, more cool stuff in the background. Like, I can't wait. You've said this before, John, going back and rewatching and see what I missed the first time to the second time. I just appreciate that stuff so much. And it's what made me fall in love with Star Wars, and also what defines and separates Star Wars from other franchises and other big cinematic adventures is the creatures that are not from here. You couldn't even come up with them. They're in Doug Chang's head, along with many a ship. But I just thoroughly enjoyed the creature work. Like, Kim was so cool.
Kim was great, and even like Brutus with his sort of puppety kind of
amazing.
I just loved it. I mean, it was just had that old Star Wars feel.
And then the Phil Tippett crab trash monster thing, like
with the little crabs, mine.
Yeah,
food,
really,
trouble.
Cool.
Just fun. A really good show. A really good show overall. I'm glad because I remember early on there was like just buzz floating around of Skeleton Crew's in trouble, and it's
People have screened it and they hate it.
they don't like it and stuff, and I gotta rewatch it in full, but and I know the recency thing is a thing, but I may have had the most fun watching the show since Mando season 2 or something like that, as far as Star Wars TV goes, and I'm
I would agree with that.
already eager to and like my son's watching this one, and he's not going to watch Acolyte or Andor, you know what I mean? So he's been getting into it. He still has to finish a couple episodes, but he's been loving it and like thinking like he's like the kids and that whole thing, and you watch it through their eyes. And Clayton, I know you went through that with your kids when they were little, especially your son. I think one of your first appearances on our podcast, he rolled in with a Mando helmet on in the background.
Right. That's right. Yeah. It's funny. We haven't watched this one together yet. We plan to, but yeah, this has been all me in this house lately. Everybody's busy.
All right. Well, that takes us to the end of the show. We want to thank everybody so much for being a part of TRB, whether you joined us in the live chat all season, you listen on your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much. Make sure you do subscribe to the Resistance broadcast on your favorite audio podcast app, or subscribe to youtube.com/@TRB podcasts, where we also have our other podcast, Nerdy and Nice, which is on its own audio platforms. And we'll have a new episode of Nerdy and Nice for you on Monday. A lot to talk about on the things we love outside of Star Wars. But thank you all very much for all your support. Thank you to our patrons. The shows that we're doing would not be possible without you. So if you have been interested and might want to join, check out patreon.com/TRB podcast. We appreciate all the support. Great community over there. A lot of them in the chat. I see them today. So thank you all so much. Clayton. Well, let's do our plugs first, Lacey. Johnny Hoey, X, Blue Sky, and then I do all my like baseball trash tweeting on X pretty much now. And Lacey, how about you?
People can find me on social media at Lacey Gillerin, and we'll see what happens with TikTok, but at It's Lacey Gillerin on TikTok.
All right.
I do want to say thank you to John Watts and Christopher Ford, if they ever watch this, for creating such a fun series that really kind of, I feel, gave me a little bit of a boost in Star Wars. I've been kind of feeling meh about it in the past year, of like, oh, this is kind of depressing. It's missing the thing that I like, which is, fun adventure in space. I didn't laugh as much as I did with this series. I was laughing every episode, and it just meant a lot. And just a friendly reminder to people on the interwebs that these shows are meant to have fun with. They're not meant to argue about or be serious about. And I had a moment yesterday with my daughter Daisy where she has this little stuffed BB-8, and she ran up to me unprompted. I was doing work upstairs, and she ran up to me and she goes, "Mama, I'm taking BB-8 to go find Leia." And I was just like, "Oh,
nice.
Okay." And she was like, "I need to find Leia. It's very important." And I was just like, "Oh, okay. Wow. Okay, great." She was like, "It's a really important mission." And I was just like, this is such a milestone moment for me as a parent that loves Star Wars. I wanted to cry. I was like so excited. I guess she's been reading the BB-8 on the Run book, who's done by the guy that does The Day the Crayons Quit. That guy. She found that book in a box of books that I had gotten while I collect books. When you're a parent, you just collect books because you're like, oh, eventually they'll read this. Yeah. She found the BB-8 book and she's been reading it, and she's obsessed about going on a mission for Poe to take BB-8 to find Leia, because they have to get her the plans for Luke Skywalker. And it was such a lovely moment that I was like, this is my kid getting into Star Wars, and this is her introduction, which is completely different from mine. So just a friendly reminder that everybody experiences it differently.
Yeah. Everyone take it easy out there.
Oh my God, I'm tearing up just thinking about it. It was such a wonderful moment. I wish I could record it, but at the same time, I'm glad I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You're like, Daisy, recreate that. We're going to do take 2. Clayton,
that's a core memory for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Clayton, you're the man. Everyone knows it. We know it.
Please.
We're gonna hang in Japan. We're gonna have a good time. But until then, where can people find you? All your amazing work you're doing, whether it's in Star Wars or other adventures. Have at it, my friend.
Yeah, more on Blue Sky lately. ClaytonSandell.com, I think, since I have now linked it somehow with my website.
I saw that. We got
Look at you. Are you a developer now?
How I did it? I'm a coder now. Yeah. Took me like an hour to figure it out, but I did. So mostly on Blue Sky. I've kind of put X on the back burner for a while. But they're on Instagram at Clayton Sandell. And the Substack, which I started, which hopefully I'll be able to kind of keep up with, giving some good content here and there.
I love that. Substack's like the new thing.
Yeah. And if you go to Blue Sky, and I have the links in my bio, as the kids say, so you can find all my stuff there. But thank you again for having me on. Everybody in the TRB community is so kind and generous with their comments.
Clayton's a celeb.
Everybody's just so nice every time I come on, and I've said this before, but anytime I'm like at a Star Wars celebration or somewhere like that, it's always TRB listeners that stop me the most.
All right.
So that's really, I appreciate you guys having me on, as always, and looking forward to Japan.
I'll never forget last celebration, people were coming up to John and I being like, "Can we ask Clayton for a photo?" And I was like,
"Oh my god."
Forget you guys. Is Clayton here?
By the end of that cantina party, Clayton's probably taking other people's phones and doing selfies with them.
Oh, please. Yeah.
Really quick before we jump out of here, John, I do want to make a mention to everybody.
I was just about to,
podcast.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. TRBpodcast.com is our new website, including our merch. Just giving everybody a heads up that our Galactic Goonies is going to extend to next week on the 24th. So you can pick up if you forgot or something came up. You have another week to get it, because wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We might be doing that on purpose.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. TRBpodcast.com. And this is, I was going to wear my Galactic Goonie shirt, but I can't take this sweatshirt off. It's like
that sweatshirt's so nice.
It's so comfortable. It's ridiculous. And I've never been, I've always liked our merch, never been proud until now. But anyway, enough of that plug your stuff. Thank you. Thank you all so much. You guys have been amazing. We hope you enjoyed Skeleton Crew as much as we did. And we will see you next Thursday with another episode right here on the Resistance broadcast. See you, Galactic Goonies. See you around, kids.